Welcome, everybody, to the CFL Weekly Pick'em Show on the Grueling True Sports Network. The CFL Weekly Pick'em Show was brought to you by BetNow.eu. Make sure you go to BetNow.eu, use the promo code TRUTH50 to get a 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. I am your co-host for the CFL Weekly Pick'em Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome my co-host. First up, Brian Schmidt. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. Been a stormy night in North Carolina.
Yeah, well, in Indiana, it's just 95 with humidity that matches. Also, I want to welcome to the show former CFL legend, Robert Drummond. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know about that legend part, but...
Oh, come on, Robert. You know you like it when I call you a legend.
Yeah, legend just means I'm old.
Yeah, but...
That's right. At least that's what my kids tell me.
Well, them kids are assholes a lot of times. They always make fun of you when you're old. My worst part is now to read stuff, I have to put reading glasses on. And then, my kids and my wife.
I've gotten to that point also.
Oh, yeah. Then they're taking pictures, threatening to put it on Facebook and everything else. So I just tell them, hey, when you want money, who do you come see? Leave me alone.
Exactly.
All right, we had a couple good games and a couple not-so-good games last week in the CFL. We're going to start off with one of the good ones. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Edmonton Eskimos 28-21. Lucky Whitehead basically showed his arrival. The first-year receiver dazzled a crowd of over 25,000, scored a 75-yard touchdown in the first half, and eluded defenders for a highlight reel 41-yard catch and run in the third quarter. And the Bombers had to survive a late-game turnover on a fumble by Andrew Harris, one of two of his fumbles that night. And they basically held off a late rally by Edmonton. But I think this game is kind of what we expected, Brian. Two quality teams and an excellent football game.
Yeah, it was what we figured would be definitely the game of the week, good potential to be the best game of the week, and it definitely lived up to it. Winnipeg, I have a good feeling about them this year, and this is a good win for them. I mean, even being at home, where I expected them to win, but this is a quality win because this is a game in the past that Dave at times has been a little 500 on it. Sometimes they play well in these games, sometimes they don't. And so it was good to see him get off to a good start.
Yeah, and I think the key here, Robert, when you look at Trevor Harris's stats for the Edmonton Eskimos, 35 for 54, 345 yards. The stats look great, but the thing that stands out to me here is no touchdown passes.
Yeah, no touchdown passes. That's telling. I mean, that just tells you, but between the 20s, he can move the ball, but when it comes time to get it, once you get into the red zone and scoring, that's a big factor. That's a huge factor in football. We call it red zone points. And hats off to Winnipeg. They're a good team. They're a lot better than I thought they'd be this year. But you have to score points in the red zone. You have to make it happen. The stats don't matter. It's what you put on the ball, what you put up on the board.
Yeah, but the one thing the stats do show is this. Winnipeg still gets the win over Edmonton, Robert, and Andrew Harris had the two fumbles, only carried the ball 10 times for 34 yards, so it makes it even more impressive to me that they can win this game without one of their key players really playing at the top of his game.
It does, and Harris is one of my favorite backs in the CFL next to Wilder Jr., you struggle sometimes with running back, but sometimes when you're struggling in a game, like you said, one of the names that stands out, Lucky Whitehead. It's just about players making plays at the right time. Put yourself in situations to win games. And that's how you win championships. I happen to be on teams before, even in college, that went undefeated before. And it's sometimes about having a special year and just players just stepping up and making plays that you don't expect. So this Winnipeg team, could be dangerous. They'll be interesting the rest of the year, and I hope Andrew Harris bounces back, and has a better game next game.
I'm sure he will too, because a guy like that's probably going to have a great game the next game to make up for what just happened.
Way too talented.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player, and I agree with Brian and you. I think Winnipeg is one of the dangerous teams here that could win a Grey Cup. Let's talk about a team that's not, the Montreal Alouettes, who lost 41-10 to the Hamilton Ticats. The Tiger Cats continued their strong start to the season with a 41-10 victory. Receiver Brandon Banks came through with another highlight game for Hamilton, scoring his third touchdown of the season on a 30-yard rush and racking up 152 receiving yards. And Brian, this is another team here that looks like a definite threat to possibly win a Grey Cup. I know it's early, but this is a good football team.
It's a good football team, but here's the thing I think about is two of your wins, one is against Toronto, one is against Montreal. Do we really know how good they are yet? That's going to be the key moving forward to see just how good they are, because I got to be honest, Toronto and Montreal are just not really bad.
Yeah.
So I unfortunately, again, hey, they took care of business, which is what they're supposed to do, but at the same time, how good are they is really going to be the question to have answered here very soon.
Yeah, but the one good thing about it, Robert, is this. They didn't just get by it on the skin of their teeth. They did win the game easily, but still, the guy that worries me here is Jeremiah Masoli, because we've seen it in the past where he's streaky, and when he's really good, he's really good. When he's really bad, he's really bad. He was 25 for 31, 417 yards, 1 touchdown, but 3 interceptions.
That's Jeremiah Masoli. Masoli is the type of player. He's up and down, hot or cold. When you get him, he's very good. When you don't, he's very bad.
How can you be so bad, Robert, that you throw 3 interceptions, or you get 3 interceptions, and you still lose 41-10?
It's a simple fact. Even I'll speak on Hamilton for a point, from a standpoint of Hamilton beat the team they're supposed to beat. I remember when we used to play teams that we were supposed to beat, and we beat them, we beat them handily. You can say what you want about Hamilton, but they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat, and they beat them pretty good. So, the jury's out on whether they're a good team or not right now, because they're 3-0. But I think they're a very, very good team because they have all the confidence in the world. Because, as we say in sports, we took care of business, and they did that pretty handily. They beat their team solidly,
Yeah, and that's the thing that stands out to me, Brian. So I think Hamilton's a threat. I do agree with you somewhat, Brian, that with the teams they played, it makes me wonder a little bit. And Masoli scares me, but they did take care of him rather easy. It's not like they beat him 17-14 in overtime.
Yeah, they really did, but I have a funny feeling that Montreal and Toronto are going to get taken care of by most everybody until they play each other, and then I'm not sure how exciting that game's going to be. So you can't take anything away from Hamilton, but at the same time, I'm before I put my money on the table, I want to see them against the Winnipegs, Edmonton. I want to see what they can do, BC, those kind of teams. I want to see what they can do because the Montreal and Toronto are just so bad. I just don't know that it's a good gauge.
Yeah, and we had 2 what I think will be contenders before this is over. The Calgary Stampeders and the BC Lions play. Quarterbacks Nick Arbuckle, Bo Levi Mitchell led the Stampeders to a fourth-quarter comeback victory against the BC Lions on Saturday night. Stamps came out on top 36-32 to get their first win of the season, and the Lions managed to keep Calgary's offensive attack in check early on. But Bo Levi Mitchell, being Bo Levi Mitchell, got things going in the second half, finished with 252 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Arbuckle entered the game late in the fourth quarter to replace Mitchell after the quarterback was forced to leave with an apparent shoulder injury, and Arbuckle stepped up to complete all 9 of his passes and lead the Stamps to 2 crucial touchdown drives. And we all know what that sounds like, Robert. That sounds like something the New England Patriots would do.
It just goes to show you how good Calgary is as a system team. Nothing against their players. They're very, very talented players, but it's a system that these guys are plugged into. When Arbuckle can step in for Bo Levi Mitchell, and make plays in order to put them in the position to win games. It's a testament to the stature, as you said before, like the New England Patriots. They're a team that just doesn't crumble, when the starting quarterback goes out of the game because of an injury. They have someone that can plug in, and continue the process, and that just doesn't make for a good team. That makes for a very good organization.
Yeah, and my take on this from looking at it is the BC Lions, who still haven't won a game, but I think this is a team that's going to get better as the season goes on. Mike Riley was 36 for 42,
Yeah, Mike
two
Riley.
touchdowns. Yeah, and you've got John White,
They're going to win
14
games.
carries for 64 yards. So when we look at this, Brian, the BC Lions are going to be all right. This is going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be a playoff team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's it's tough when you lose games like this, but as Robert always says, it's early, and you can see the talent level, and you can see that this is going to be a good football team. So I have no doubt that they're going to get better as the year goes on. They're going to win games, and they're going to be at a playoff time. And who knows? Maybe this is one of those teams as the year goes on, just it builds and builds and builds, and now you've got a contender for the Grey Cup.
Yeah, and we've always said this before, Robert. If you've got Mike Riley, you got a shot in any game you play.
Yeah, any game you play. I mean, that guy's a weapon. And when he's on, he's dangerous.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say, Robert, out of your two former teams, your best hope here is the BC Lions.
That goes without saying, because Toronto is a train wreck.
Oh, Toronto gets hammered 32-7 by Saskatchewan. I don't even know what to say about this game because Toronto's they're bad. And I think right now, Brian, Toronto's worse than Montreal.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely worse than Montreal. I think that this is a team that your offense isn't very good, your defense isn't very good, your special teams isn't very good, your coaching isn't very good. There's a lot wrong here right now.
Are you trying to say they're not very good?
Oh my goodness! I don't know how. If I was a Toronto fan right now, I just don't know how you feel any sense of positivity. How do you even look at this and go, well, hey, we'll be better next year? I mean, this is a train wreck.
Yeah, because when you look at the Argos, Robert, I mean, I don't think that they really have a quarterback they could win with. They got James Wilder, and that's about it.
Yeah.
It really is. I look at this roster, and the only one that stands out to me that I would want on my team if I was starting a CFL team was James Wilder.
I mean, it's true, but I mean, like, shockingly, and this is cliche and it sounds crazy, but they played better than last week. I mean, it doesn't mean much because they're still a bad team, but you always in bad things, you always try and find the good in it. That's why you go back and you watch film and you try and dissect, what happened, and what went wrong and try and correct it. I don't think they have the athletes or the talent and the positions to correct it, to go out there and win games and get themselves into the playoffs. So as an organization, you can tell yourself, like you said, James Wilder Jr. is one of my favorite backs. Granted, for the simple fact that we both played at Toronto, and I'm always keen on Toronto or on Toronto backs and BC Lions backs, but Andrew Harris being an anomaly. But it's hard to sit there and watch an organization that should be better, but they're just struggling. And right now, they're struggling.
Yeah, and we look, Brian, over at the Rough Riders. Cody Fajardo, 24 for 31, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. William Powell carries the ball 15 times for 77 yards. They had 2 receivers in Evans and Moore, both over 100 yards. I don't know if it's because they were playing the Argonauts, but I think the Rough Riders are a contender this year.
It's a good team. The problem with games like this is there's just no way to gauge it.
No, you can't.
There's no way to really be able to say how good they can be because, look, let's be honest. I mean, you could put a practice squad out there and be competitive and win. They're just, unfortunately, Toronto, the only guy that we can talk about is Wilder. After that, there's probably not one player on there, like you said, that you could start a CFL team with. You would want on a CFL team. So it's hard to gauge, with Saskatchewan, just how good they are when you see them in a game like this.
I know.
Unfortunately, anybody that plays Montreal and Toronto, it's like being on a bye week.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it's going to be all year.
Yeah. And I don't know what to say when I see them because they're supposed to be professional football teams. I will give Toronto this, though. I do agree with Robert where it looks like they are getting better. I think I think right now Montreal might be a little bit better than Toronto, but I think by the time you get 3 or 4 more weeks in, Toronto's going to be better than Montreal.
Yes, they are.
So,
I would agree with that, yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at this week's games. Let's start with Thursday, July 4th, as the Hamilton Tiger Cats will travel to Montreal to play the Alouettes, and I'm going to say Hamilton. Robert?
Hamilton. Are you kidding?
Brian?
Hamilton.
And I have to ask, Robert, so. Next up, we have a competitive game. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers will travel to Ottawa to play the Red Blacks. Brian?
I like Winnipeg in this. I do agree this is going to be a competitive game, and I will say that if Ottawa wins, it would not surprise me. Just Ottawa has that ability to be giant killers, and they also have that ability in the past to look horrible, to not look very good when they should. But this is why I just think Winnipeg right now is just a cut above everybody, except Calgary. I think Calgary is too.
All right, Robert.
My gut tells me Winnipeg, but I'm going to go with Ottawa. I mean, I just feel Ottawa at home and just them just being the Ottawa team of a bowl, just a team with all the talent in the world, on paper, but just it doesn't get it done on the field. I think they find a way to get it done and win this game.
Yeah, I think this is a toss-up. Right now, I'm going to go with Ottawa, but I might change my mind 2 days from now. Next up, BC against Toronto. BC, anybody not picking BC?
Unless Toronto brings Doug Flutie, Pinball Clemens, Robert Drummond, Mookie Mitchell, Paul Mazzotti back, Jimmy Jett coming in back to play that game, I'm going with BC.
Now, if they bring you guys back present day, would you still?
We probably still could beat them.
Robert, BC's pretty decent, though. You could be, I guarantee this, the 5 of you guys could come back and probably beat Toronto by yourselves.
I wouldn't doubt it. They're just not playing well at all. That's a team, when you look at a team that's in disarray or a team that just has no team chemistry, that's what you're seeing right now. That's a team that has no team chemistry at all. Those guys just don't play well together.
Is it no team chemistry, or are they just not that talented?
A little of both, but it's just. I mean, you gotta have team chemistry. What a lot of people didn't know is me and Doug Flutie didn't get along the greatest, but we had great team chemistry. On a football field, we managed to play well.
Yeah, you respected each other.
Oh, big time. I had the utmost respect for him, and he had the utmost respect for me.
All right.
So it's frustrating to watch.
I'll duck the obvious question here: was why didn't you and Doug get along? And I'll go to Calgary at Saskatchewan. Robert, who you like in this one?
Ooh. You know what? As I said before, my head tells me, Calgary, but I'm going to go with Saskatchewan.
I'm going with Saskatchewan also. I really like
I just think they're playing well.
Yeah, and I think Fajardo is the real deal. And they're at home. And remember this, Calgary, when they lose games, it's usually early in the season.
Yes, it is. They get better as the season goes on. They're like a fine wine.
Brian, did we convince you?
Yeah, I nope, you did not. I'm going to go with Calgary. I do agree with they lose games early. I agree with that, but my gut tells me it's Calgary's going to win this.
All right, guys. We've picked all the games. And the thing is, our show goes a lot quicker now because Montreal and Toronto suck so bad that like half the games we pick are kind of no-brainers right now. In the past, it's usually just Montreal.
Now, is Jim Pop still the general manager in Toronto? I mean, I've heard no news about it. I know usually when teams start doing it bad, it's the general manager is the first person to, get the blame and get the axe. So I'd be trying to find out.
You would have to question the general manager in Toronto and, and I mean, because they're the guys that put these teams together, and they didn't put them together real well. But
That's an understatement.
And that always
Yeah,
leads
I
to
know.
the question. That always leads to the question: when you're putting this team together, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
At some point, you have to look at what's on paper and go, yeah.
Would it be money constraints from ownership?
Very well could be, yeah.
Possibly, but in the CFL, I don't think there's that much money being thrown around, so it can't really be that much of a disparity for to have that much to be that talentless, you know.
Yeah. But all right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Robert, any final words?
Early season, you know, this is a marathon, not a sprint. That's what I always say. You know, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Brian?
I hope everybody has a good holiday and enjoy some football this week. That's the great thing about the CFL is you get to watch football during the summer. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I think this year, even though you've got two teams that are really bad at the bottom, I think you got 6 other teams that all have high hopes and expectations that this could be a really good year for them, because I think there is something positive to think about with every team in this league except for Montreal and Toronto. Luckily,
Well, if you think about this, and I may be missing a game, but I don't think I am. With the exception of whoever has played Montreal or Toronto, every other game has been a fairly close competitive game. I can't think of any other game that's been a blowout. The Winnipeg game this week, 28-21, competitive game. BC Calgary, competitive game. I don't know that there has been
did
a
BC
game
get
that
blown
has
out
not.
once? I think BC got blown out once.
Did they?
I'm not
I can't-
sure, but I think they did.
I
Hold
can't
on.
remember one off the top of my head. So I just
BC
know
lost.
that every Montreal.
BC lost by 16 to Edmonton, but it was a competitive game because I think BC was up like 17-3 or something early in that game.
Yeah.
So that is the closest thing we've had to a blowout. And really, Montreal played Edmonton tough week 1. That was 32-25. But I do think what we're going to see is I think we're going to see Montreal continue to, if it's possible, get worse. I think Toronto will improve a little bit, but I think you're going to see those two at the bottom with 1 or 2 wins each, and those wins are against each other the way this is going.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
But
this puts in mind, you'll appreciate this, is back in the 80s, if you remember when Kansas and Kansas State were so bad in college football and they would play each other and they ended up playing each other and tying. And, it's just that how bad do you have to be as two football teams and you get on the field and just be that bad to play against each other. But that's the first thing that comes to mind because I just remember how bad those teams were back in the 80s.
what I want to see is how small the crowds are when they play each other, especially in Toronto and Montreal, where they don't draw well when they win recently.
No, they don't.
Right.
So, all right,
you have
guys.
to win, so.
We will be back next Tuesday night at 9. Good for everybody?
That'll work.
That's fine with me.
All right, make sure you check out our sponsor, betnow.eu, where you use the promo code TRUTH50 to get a 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. We will have Inside Boxing Weekly coming up in like 6 minutes at the bottom of the hour. I got to do a lot of talking. So we're going to wrap it up. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Robert Drummond, Brian Schmidt, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.